Saroyan and Erivan, 1978. Saroyan left Moscow for Erivan on October 12th, 1978. In his journal he noted, Thursday, October 12th, 1978, 12:05 a.m. Welcome to the day on which I fly to Erivan, in my own great immortal Armenia, and to bed, to get ready for that grand event of great joy. He spent the rest of the morning reading the magazine Soviet Literature, eating, and complaining about the hotel staff. He presumably headed to the airport in the late morning, as he notes it was a 3-hour flight to Erivan, and his first entry from the Armenia Hotel in that fair city was done at 5:05 p.m. He reported that he was warmly received at the airport and that there had been cameras, both still and film. He also noted that he was joined by Levon Mukhin, or Mugarditchin, who signed his book for me, full of photographs of my last visit. That last visit would have been 1976, when he noted that he'd visited the Martyros Saroyan Museum and other sites in Armenia. Saroyan was almost constantly followed by photographers, and in 1976, it was clear that he was followed by at least 2 different photographers whose photos were turned into books. Mukhin and Bohos Bohosian, whose photos would later be turned into the photo book His Heart in the Highlands. Saroyan was taken by his friend, Vahan Tavtyin. Saroyan also wrote it as Tavichin at times, out onto the town, heading to a theater for an evening of Armenian dance. Saroyan says that the concert began at 7:30, and along the way, the group planned on stopping at Tatvyan's house for eggs and tomatoes. This could be referring to Lalikov Dvadzheg, a typical breakfast and one that Saroyan enjoyed, and even made for himself at home. The group was supposed to attend the dance concert at the Young People's Theater, but were caught in a traffic jam, and instead went to Vahan's house, where his wife, Vartush, made a magnificent zubzik, chicken and rice and beef, and a huge mug of tea. After the visit, which Saroyan described as a grand time, he returned to the hotel, where he enjoyed a bath, watched some TV, noting at 11:55, just saw the arrival of himself, William Saroyan, and the embracing of Tavtyin, Hamadaspian, and 2 others. I am not sure who they are. Petrosian, Matavosian, I hope. This permits me now to go and get some sleep. Saroyan might have frequently clashed with reviewers and the press, but he enjoyed seeing himself mentioned on TV and in print. The sheer amount of clippings he held on to speaks to that truth. October 13th started with Saroyan finagling a change of room. A creature of habit, he wanted the same room he had been given in 1976, but when his items were transferred to the hotel, he was given a different room. After some back and forth with one of the few employees that spoke good English at the Armenia Hotel, he was safely moved into the room he had wanted from the beginning, room 504. Saroyan attended several cultural events over the following days. He went to a 6-hour event, the Reception of All Nations, at the Russia Theater, and there ran into a photographer from Toronto who had taken photos of him and his cousin, Kirk Manassian, while he was visiting in Paris. The photographer had said he would mail the photos, but had not, despite Saroyan sending reminders. Saroyan was angry and would not allow him to take photos of him. Even when the photographer would attempt to get photos of Saroyan from a distance, the author would turn away and purposefully ruin their shot. After the event, he was escorted to another event at President Tadeusz Sarkisian's home. There he was approached by photographers wishing to set up times to shoot with Saroyan. This was a theme of his visits to Armenia, and the reason so many Armenian papers and news agencies have so many photos of his visits. One thing that Saroyan encountered often on his visits, not only to Erivan but to Moscow and other Eastern Bloc cities, was being contacted for help by locals. Varla Samuelian details this on their trip to Moscow and Erivan in 1976, and Saroyan makes several references to the Mad Woman of Erivan in his journal entries. On October 16th, he wrote, "I must remember that my bogus relatives, the gimpy, lanky man and his swift, clever, thin wife, and their sweet daughter were in the waiting room of this floor this morning. But I explained that they must not be encouraged, And so the Russian woman, who in 1946 came here with her Armenian husband, who soon died, she speaks excellent Armenian, asked the people to leave. But when I went down and out to the sidewalk, the gimpy man came to me to embrace me as a beloved relative. And by God, I had to be amused by that and indeed admire it. They had no relation to me whatsoever, but I am going to permit them to continue the pretense. He also details a visit from Gegetsek Hovesian, claiming to be a relative of Levon Gerglanian, therefore of Saroyan's clan, and where he took the name of the family in his book My Name is Aram. Saroyan had met the Gerglanians on his visit in 1960, though he had not met Gegetsek and assumed he was of no relation. Saroyan suffered a few bouts of gastric distress, no doubt exacerbated by his well-recorded drinking. He said of a visit with Toftian, "We split a couple of bottles of vodka and an Armenian brandy between us." He also spends significant amounts of time detailing his daily bathroom habits. He did this since his earliest journaling in the 1930s, but became more pronounced as he got older. Much of his final journal from 1981 deals with Saroyan's bowels, their movements or lack thereof. He mentions nearly every meal he had, and one that appears over and over is lulu kebab, a skewered meat dish typically made from ground mutton and onion. He had at least once every day for more than a week, according to his journal. He also appeared to enjoy matzoon, yogurt, tea, and lavash several times a day. Every day, Saroyan toured parts of Erivan and its outlying areas. He was chauffeured about, and on October 21st, Zori Balayan's driver, who had taken Saroyan many places, brought him a map with various places they had visited marked off. This map is currently in the travel documents at Stanford's Green Library. On October 20th, Saroyan met with Manug Manatsagian, who brought a TV crew with him. Boris Bogosian, who had photographed his visit in 1976, again met with Saroyan and shot photos and moving pictures. The next day, he met with Levon Vartanian, who had met Saroyan's uncle Aram during his visit 9 years prior. Saroyan attended plays, including Come Let Us Speak Freely by Krikor Dir Krikorian, and purchased Armenian and Russian magazines and books. This last is interesting because Saroyan did not read either language. He laid praise on Hrant Medavosyan's novel The Orange Herd, which he read in translation. On October 22nd, he visited the In-Tourist office, and then an art gallery with an exhibition of Hakab Kojoyan's paintings. On October 24th, he had a long television interview, as well as visits with well-known Armenian authors and artists. The 26th saw him attend a poetry reading he found rather dour, and a screening of a documentary on Minas Avatisyan, the famed painter who had just died 3 years prior. After these visits, Saroyan seemed to have settled in to try and get some writing done. But the calls kept coming. Saroyan notes that he would get so many calls a day that concentrating became nigh impossible. Calls from admirers and even more presumed or potential relatives. His hotel was well known to all from the coverage, and almost every day he mentions one visitor or another, almost always uninvited, knocking on his door. All of this, plus his desire to get out and see the good people of Armenia, meant that he accomplished little actual writing. He did, however, visit with several officials from the Armenian Writers' Union. On the 27th of October, Saroyan headed out of Erivan, heading 80 miles south to the city of Vanadzor, checking into the Kirovkin Hotel, where he would continue his journey into his ancestral homeland. Thank you for listening to From the Collection of Forever Saroyan. We'll be back next week.